The transition to group work. The final section will support you in making the transition into the group. We will look at concerns people typically have about working in a group, your role as a group member, and do some planning in case you start to struggle with the group at some point. Wouldn't individual therapy be better? It's very common for individuals to feel anxious with respect to exploring painful experiences or psychological problems in a group context. Unless someone has had a previous constructive experience in group work, it's unusual for people to feel positive about working therapeutically in a group. So let's address some of these concerns. First, people often think, but wouldn't it be safer and better for me to work on my trauma in a one-to-one helping relationship rather than in a group? It is impossible to say for any particular individual, whether group work or an exclusive one-to-one helping relationship will be safer and more effective. However, there is evidence that working in a group can be as or more beneficial than using a one-to-one helping relationship. And if groups are well conceived and facilitated, there is evidence that they can be safe and effective specifically for people who experienced childhood trauma. Group work and individual support just have their advantages and shortcomings. Some people may feel safer working one-to-one or are able to talk in more depth about issues which evoke the most shame or distress. Having said this, we have worked with people who feel at times safer working in a group. You can choose to be quiet and sit in the background in a group if that's what you need to do. One-to-one support certainly gives you more individual attention and can be tailored specifically to you, which can be more limited in a group. However, there are a number of therapeutic experiences you can only have in a group. These include universality, seeing that your experience and perceptions are similar to others who encountered childhood harm. You might experience normalization, coming to appreciate that your issues or perceptions are shared by others who experienced childhood harm. Universality and normalization may help you feel less alone with your problems. Groups also allow for multiple perspectives and interpersonal learning, i.e., you can benefit from seeing the insight and development that others are experiencing. Furthermore, historical trauma often involved harm which happened in a group, e.g., your family or at school. Having a safe and productive experience in a therapy group can be reparative, allowing you to feel more confident that other groups can be okay places. Also, experiences of altruism can be useful in groups, i.e., it feels therapeutic to help others. What is the role of group participants? If we start a new job, begin an educational experience, or join others involved in some social group, most of us want to know what is expected of us. It helps us feel more secure and gives us a sense of direction. We encourage you to share your experience, personal learning, and empathy with other group members. If another member presents the group with their past experience or a current problem, you can help by listening, empathizing, sharing a similar experience, offering your ideas on the issues, etc. Your facilitators will have responsibility for guiding the group and will, at times, directly help members. But groups work best when members take a role in supporting one another. Groups also work best when members attend sessions on a regular basis, arrive on time, and communicate with facilitators if for any reason they cannot make a session. A trauma group can feel a bit like a team, with individual members contributing to the whole. If individuals are arriving late or simply not showing up, other members can begin to feel insecure about the group's stability. We ask you to prepare for each group session by reading the relevant group book, uh, reading the relevant guidebook chapter, and completing the related exercises. Following a check-in, members will largely be exploring their experience of the guidebook reading and exercises, and your preparation will help you contribute and get the most out of this discussion. If you are struggling with the reading or exercises, please don't ignore it. Ask your facilitators or others supporting you for help. At times, it will be helpful for you to offer honest feedback to other group members. Perhaps you will want to give them positive, supportive, and encouraging feedback. Please do this. They probably need to hear it. However, you might think another member is misinterpreting something or making decisions that are not helpful. It may be useful to offer that member honest feedback in a way which is sensitive and respectful. It might be hard for them to hear it, but it might be just what they need to hear as well. If another group member, if other group members support and encourage you, try to accept it. If you receive feedback which feels upsetting or confusing, try to listen and see what may have value. If something feels quite upsetting that happens in the group, try to talk about it rather than disengaging from the group. If it feels impossible to talk about it within the group, please discuss it with your facilitators. Concerns with respect to speaking about childhood events. There are opportunities for you to talk about your childhood experiences during group sessions, and being able to explore these experiences with others can certainly be therapeutic. However, it's common for group members to feel anxious and unsure with respect to speaking about the past. There are many reasons why HTP group members can feel worried about talking about harmful childhood experiences. Exercise 1. Tick any reason below why it might feel especially difficult to talk in the group about what happened in childhood. You can then talk this through with the person providing you with one-to-one pre-group support. Please pause the audio and complete exercise 1. There is nothing that can be said which will allow you to feel absolutely safe in speaking about difficult childhood events, and doing work with the HTP will involve some risk-taking and anxiety management. However, it can be useful to keep in mind that part of the role of facilitators is to keep the group safe and all participants are in the same boat. This usually creates an atmosphere where members want to look after and support one another when someone describes difficult past experiences. If you had negative experiences talking about your childhood previously, keep in mind that an HTP group is a very different context. Group members may have certain questions about speaking about the past. When should I begin talking about what happened? How much detail should I give? Is it okay to talk about something if my memory of what happened is hazy? What if I upset someone in the group by talking about what happened? It's important that you feel supported in finding your own voice when speaking about the past. There is no right way to do it, only your way. Every group member is different and needs to be able to speak about what happened on their terms and in their unique style. However, we can offer a few general pointers to help you decide how to express this unique voice. How much should you say about what happened in childhood, and when should you begin speaking? This is up to you, but in our experience, it can often make sense for members to begin describing abuse or neglect a bit more slowly and then say more as they go along. There are 22 sessions, so there are many opportunities to talk. Trust in your facilitators and other group members takes time to develop, and it may be best to talk about the more sensitive subjects after you have had some time to build trust. What if something from your past seems important, but your memory is hazy? If you are not sure what happened, It may be because you were very young or you dissociated while the event was occurring. If your memory is hazy, it's absolutely fine to describe what you can, and you can always tell us that you feel unsure of what happened. That's part of what you are exploring too. Some wonder about how much detail they should provide when describing childhood abuse, neglect, or abandonment. Again, it's important for you to find your voice, and there is no exact formula which exists to answer this question. However, it can be beneficial to try and find a balance. On the one hand, when you are ready, it can be useful to describe experiences such as abuse so that others have some idea of what happened. But it's normally unhelpful and unnecessary to describe events in graphic detail. Events described with disturbing graphic detail may leave the person speaking feeling vulnerable after a session and may trigger someone else in the group. It won't be possible to get this balance exactly right all the time within a trauma group. With the best intentions, sometimes triggering happens, and facilitators and members just need to look after each other to work through it. A group with basic safety and committed members will manage these events. Some can wonder, will everything I say about my childhood experiences remain strictly confidential to the group? If a group member is discussing physical or emotional abuse, neglect, or abandonment which occurred in the home or school, the responsibility for acting on this, if they wish, normally belongs to the person who was harmed. If a group member wants to make a confrontation or allegations, this is their responsibility as an adult. However, there is an exception which comes up from time to time, and this relates to childhood sexual abuse. If you recall, the HTP guidelines indicate that facilitators may have a professional obligation to break confidentiality in the event that a significant risk to a group participant or others develops, or if there is a disclosure of a very serious crime. If a group member discusses child sexual abuse, identifies who the perpetrator is, and especially if the perpetrator is likely to have access to children, the facilitators may have a professional duty of care to the public to make a report to the authorities. It may be the case that a group member does not want such a report made, or if they are considering making a report, now is not the right time. Does this mean that if a group member does not want such a report to be made, they cannot talk about sexual abuse having occurred? It does not. If the group member does not want the sexual abuse brought to authorities, they can discuss sexual abuse without revealing the identity of the abuser. It is still possible to do some good therapeutic work in this way. Without this information, your facilitators have no responsibility to act. We bring this issue up because it's important that group members feel safe and in control regarding what happens with the information they reveal. Policy concerning a professional duty to the public can be somewhat different depending on country or locality. So if this is relevant and you are unsure about how boundaries work, talk to your facilitators so you can feel confident in deciding what you reveal. Getting triggered while in the group. While each group member is unique, what almost all of them share is a sensitivity or vulnerability to certain social circumstances. You were harmed or neglected by people in the past, so, understandably, you may imagine that people might harm or neglect you today. With this in mind, it's likely that at some point you will get triggered while working in the group. In other words, someone will say something or something will happen which will instigate difficult feelings. Anxiety, anger, or shame is common, or distressing thoughts. Or, if another member is talking about something from their past or present lives, this might trigger some distressing memories in you. Preparing for getting triggered is important. because we want everyone who commits to doing this program to make it right through to the end. If a member has impulses to end participation in the group before it completes, it may be because they got triggered during a session and they imagine they just can't continue. Preparing for getting triggered and having plans for dealing with this is a good way to ensure that you will get through it and stay engaged with the work. What can also help is appreciating that getting triggered is normal and that it's likely to happen to all the group members to some degree at one time or another. Exercise 2. What might trigger you? You will have some idea of the situations that tend to trigger distressing emotions or thoughts. Score the triggers below from 1 to 5, with 1 representing not a worry and 5 representing a huge worry. Please pause the audio and complete exercise 2. Below are some strategies which many members can find helpful if they get triggered in the group. There is no one strategy that works for everyone or at all times. Highlight or circle the ones you think might help you. Talk about the feelings and thoughts that are occurring so you can get some feedback or develop your understanding of what is happening. Stand back from the feelings and thoughts and ask yourself, are my thoughts and feelings realistic, or am I getting something out of proportion? Take a break from the session or group if the reaction seems really powerful. Ask for help. Tell others what's happening and tell us what you need help with. Breathe deeply and slowly. Reassure yourself as strongly as you can, or ask facilitators or group members for reassurance. Switch off or distract yourself. Cutting yourself off from what is happening can sometimes be necessary to keep yourself protected. Indicate below any other strategies you think will work well for you if you get triggered. If necessary, you can pause the audio here and do some further writing. All right, you have read about how the program works. You have been introduced to ideas about how to best use the guidebook. You have been thoughtful about your motivation, when and where to do this work, and stability and safety. You have considered the transition to group work. Let's go.